Well, we started our conversation this morning by talking about the inauguration of the new governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Soludo. And my colleague Ayo did mention the words, some of the words which he started saying that the people, he presented himself for employment and the people interviewed him and found him worthy. And one of the ways people do this employment is by ensuring that they have their voter's card. They're able, that's the only instrument through which people can employ those who wish, or let's say recruit those who wish to occupy public office. It's a very important exercise. And for the past couple of months now, INEC has been on this registration drive. This morning, we ask, how far so far? Is there a great awareness about the current registration drive? Are people complying? INEC tried to be innovative in this new drive by ensuring that people can do this online. Do people understand the process? Will INEC need to renovate, so to speak, or reinvent itself, so to speak, in terms of getting people to go with the flow? These are some of the questions we intend to raise this morning, and we have two gentlemen here in the studio. Mr. Victor Aluko is the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at INEC. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We also have with us Mr. Austin Aigbe, who is a Senior Program Officer, Center for Democracy and Development. Mr. Aigbe, welcome to the program as well.
Thank you. Nice to meet you again this morning.
Well, this is where we currently are, that we're getting into the season where politicians have started politicking and getting ready for their primaries to present themselves to the people. The question now is, are the people themselves getting ready? How far have we gone with the continuous voter registration exercise?
For INEC, we're trying our best. We started months ago, last year, at the end of June. And as at this Monday, 14th March, 4 million Nigerians have successfully registered.
That's new
registrants.
New registrants.
Now, we all know that the exercise is not for everyone. If you registered before and you don't have problems, or we don't expect you to turn up to come and say you want to register again. We told Nigerians that exercise is for those who turned 18 years since the last exercise, since the last time we stopped the continuous voter registration, or those who didn't register before. There's opportunity for them now to ensure that their names are on the register. And we also told Nigerians that it's an opportunity for you to, if you have moved to another location, you know, you have transferred, you have moved, changed your residence and location, it's an opportunity for you to also transfer your registration to where you are so that you'll be able to vote. We also said there's also an opportunity for those who lost their cards or their cards have become defaced or spoiled to apply for new cards free of charge, and INEC will give the cards to them. We also said those who have problems with the spellings of their names, you know, all those issues can also come up and let us know so that we'll make the corrections of those records.
So far, so good. The number of people who have come up with either new registrations or with problems from the past or having moved areas or with defaced cards or stolen cards, lost cards, as the case might be, 4 million as the total figure.
But we also have the total people who responded were about 7 million.
7 million.
But most of these other, most of the other people were people who pre-registered online. And we need to let them know, mostly young people, we need to let them know that that online registration, it's not an end, but it's not an end by itself. When you go online, you are only pre-registering. You still need to get to our office to finalize that registration. Some people just thought that once you go online, that's the end. No, we are asking them to go to our office and finalize that registration. The online team was supposed to make you get started. That is, you were busy, so you register online and you give a date that you will come to our office to now finalize. And some of them we're not doing that. And that's why we are saying that they should understand the process. It's always good to understand the process of an activity so that you'll be able to finalize your registration and you'll be able to get your card so that you can vote in 2023. So that's a major thing we are telling young people especially. You know, we are grateful for their response. And we are saying, if you pre-registered online and you have not gone to our office to finalize it, it's like you've gone halfway. You know, you have not completed it. And of course, those who went directly to our offices, the local government offices, state offices, and were able to register, completed their registration. And of course, since last Tuesday, 8th of March, we now moved our registration exercise to the wards in the country. Because people were complaining that, yes, local government offices, state offices were far from where they were. We now moved registration to ward level all over the country. All the wards in the country will move registration to ward level so that people can access the locations more.
I was going to come to that shortly, and I see that our producers already put in the website where people are expected to log on and start the registration process on. And we will come to that shortly so that you can help perhaps take people through the process. But I was just going to ask you, because so far you said only 4 million people have successfully completed the process.
There will be more.
Yes. So what I would like to know is, how many people did you estimate when you started the continuous voter registration at the end of June? How many people did the Commission estimate could be registering before the next election?
The Commission actually estimated that between the end of June next year and the end of June this year, that's the year when we'll stop the process, that we could have up to 20 million new registrants.
20 million?
That was what we prepared for. We could have up to 20 million.
Okay.
We know that it could be less than that, but we decided to just have an estimate.
Just to confirm, the old figure before this new...
was 84 million.
Was 84 million
yes,
registered voters. And, you know, there have also been questions about the state of the register, because people have said we need to clean it out, we need to remove dead people.
The register is a living register. You know, we created an electronic voters register, you know, in 2011. And that's why we don't do general registration anymore. Once your name is there, your name is there.
Yes, so there are people who are saying that we need to clean out that register. That register needs to be harmonized.
The process of updating is taking in and taking in new people, removing people who are dead, you know, and people who have moved to other places.
How do you know that people are dead?
Well, we're not the hospitals, we're not the population commission, we're not places where they register deaths. We rely on data from other sources. If we're giving valid data in a community about people who have passed on, definitely we will remove their names from the register. But, you know, we cannot just go on our computers and start removing names. That would be illegal. You need valid data. You know, that data has to be presented to us.
I'm not the one who has raised
I'm just saying, you are saying a valid thing.
Yes, about the need to clean the register.
Yes, the register must be cleaned regularly.
Yes.
The register that's why I say it's a living register.
Okay.
That is, as we go on, you know, people pass on every day. People are born every day. People turn 18 every day. Just as we are doing our best to ensure that those who turn 18 are able to enroll, it's also important that those who are passed on, their names are removed. But I'm saying that the process of removal is not that easy, because you cannot just wake up one morning and start removing people's names. We need data from the relevant agencies.
Okay. Let me come to you, Mr. Igwe. I don't know how. I know that your organization is very involved in raising voter awareness as well, and you've been talking about the need for people to register. I'm wondering, how would you rate the process so far? Have you heard complaints from people? Do people think that this new method which INEC has adopted is working for them, or have you heard, you know, suggestions that they have made that they would like you to perhaps transmit to the Commission?
Yes, there's been a combination of challenge people have come up with, particularly one of them had been resolved recently by the cascading of the process to the ward. There was a huge challenge, people particularly local individuals who live far away from local area and, of course, the state, getting access to those locations. So INEC had then responded, because, again, you have to think about the resources of cascading, and that's probably why INEC delayed the process. The whole purpose for the online registration was to ease, to some degree, of to increase the willingness, particularly of young people, to get on board and gradually take them to the local authority. I know that majority of people, the 3 million we talked about, are young people who probably may never have the time to go physically to the point, and a lot of folks who live outside of the shore of the country who wish to register as a voter, but because of the time lag, because there's also a time lag for which you have to register online and then appear physically at the local authority level. And if those guys are out of the country and they're unable to arrive at that material time, then that registration becomes invalid. These are some of the challenges.
Let me quickly respond to that. Does it become invalid if you don't go when you say you'll go to the INEC office?
Not really. Not really, because you have already indicated...
Not really is not a yes or a no.
I said not really.
Yes.
The reason is, if you still go after, the records are there. We will not turn you away, you know. We will not turn the person away. The interest is for people to be able to enroll.
So no, it doesn't make it invalid.
It doesn't necessarily make it invalid.
No, that is not exactly qualifying.
Just to explain,
yes.
You have when you go online to register,
yes,
you click on a date.
You book.
Yes, and you got a tag. When that time elapses, you then have to go register and get another time slot. So most often, INEC will advise that you just go physically and get it done within a period of time. When you get a date, and actually I know a lot of people who got date and they couldn't appear. This is not something that, it's actually something that was discussed at the INEC office. That there's a time slot, once you get that date, there's a specific time.
14 days.
Yes.
14 days interval.
Exactly.
And we expect you to go.
Appear. So if you don't appear, then that 14 days elapses, you have to go book another time.
Is that correct, sir?
Well, I said not necessarily, because if you go online again and you start pre-registering, you start a period of double registration. That's what I'm saying. That it will be good for you to go on that day that you booked, because you booked it yourself. But if you default and you appear in our office, we'll try to still consider you, because it's in our interest that you register. You know, that's the paramount interest.
What instruction do your people have? Because when you
are dealing with youth, when you are dealing with young people,
when
you are dealing with young people, the important thing is to let them know the process. But a few times, people default, and you don't necessarily use a sledgehammer when you are dealing with young people, because when you are too hard, you turn people away. And it's not in our interest to turn people away. It is good when people say, on the 28th, I'll be there. But when they don't turn up, it's painful for us, it's painful for our process. But what I'm saying is that the important thing for us is for people to participate.
I'm a little bothered when you say, when I asked you the question about whether or not it invalidates your registration, you didn't say, yes, it invalidates your registration. Or no, it doesn't invalidate your registration.
It doesn't invalidate the pre-registration.
You said not necessarily, which means that it could, it might not, which is neither here nor there. That's how I interpret when it's not a yes or a no. If it's somewhere in the middle, it means that depending on your circumstance, it could invalidate it, or it might not invalidate it. That's the meaning I get from that. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying it doesn't necessarily invalidate it.
No, the necessarily is
the
word I have a problem with.
Because if you go online again and you begin another process, that's double
So you
process.
don't need to, if assuming you're not able to meet your date for whatever reason, it could be ill health, it could be work, it could be anything. Assuming that happens, what should anyone in that circumstance do?
The person should still go to our office. Maybe due to ill health, when you are now out of hospital, go to our office, go and complete it. The person will be considered. Rather than start a new process, that becomes a double process. We'll try our best to avoid all these double issues, because we're having a lot of problems with double registration. In Anambra, thousands of people will have to clean from the register. In FCT, after we concluded CVR, we have to clean thousands off. You know, many people will believe either engaged in double registration out of ignorance. Some did it willingly because they felt like, instead of transferring, let me register again. Instead of going to change my card, let me register again. And all this creates a lot of problem for the process. The process of cleaning the register itself, it's not just free of charge like that. You spend money, and you spend taxpayers' money.
So you would rather that if you miss your date, so this is very important. If when you book a date,
as quickly as possible.
Go as quickly as possible to the nearest INEC office, and you will be considered again. Do not register again. So this is, I mean, I'm looking at the visuals on television now, and it will seem that much as you've made the process easier for young people to be able to, not just young people, anyone, to be able to go online and start the registration process. Do you still have this process currently ongoing? I mean, these are your offices.
That's the online process?
Yes.
Online process.
No. I mean, so the process where INEC officials go to different wards and they're registering people starting from online. Do you have that?
Of course. Of course. Like I said, we moved registration to ward level. That's for actually physical registration. When it comes to online, you know, you have to go to our office at the local government level or at the state office. We don't have offices actually in wards. We don't have offices in wards. We don't have infrastructure in wards to do that. If it is online to registration, you have to complete it in our local government office or our state office. But for physical registration, we've moved to all the wards now so that we're nearer to the people, and we're asking those who have not registered to take advantage of this. And we're also telling those who have lost their cards, don't register afresh, because it becomes double registration. We will clean it off. Those who have the face cards or have lost their cards, don't register afresh. Just let us know. Come to us and say, we ask you, what do you want to do? Just tell us the truth. I've lost my card. Or I've been transferred. I want to transfer my registration. Immediately the officials will do the right thing. That there are different forms for all these things. And you will get your new cards and you'll be okay. Rather than wanting to register afresh and clog. You can imagine all over the country now, after the registration, I want to finish registration in June this year. We have to go on what we call automatic biometric identification system, ABIS. That is, we subject the entire thing to computer analysis. And the systems we use these days are so powerful that if you registered before in Lagos and you now come to Abuja and do a double registration, we will pick it. And what we are saying, we will remove that last registration. So it becomes a waste of time, a waste of effort. We will remove it. So it's not necessary. Just tell us exactly what you want to do, and it will be done for you.
Okay. Let me send this to my colleagues in Lagos. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Maokwe. Perhaps a good way to start, Maokwe, is to even ask people who have had to go to Abuja or to any INEC office or whatever, to send us their own comments. So you can go check our Twitter handle right now. There's a question there for you, if in case you have tried to register online, or you have registered before, or you have any of the issues that you find on the INEC website that we put up a little while ago. Some tabs that are there, you may, if you have had any issues, any difficulty trying to register or replace your voter card or stuff, you might be able to send those questions, and then we'll be able to put them to Mr. Aluko. But Mr. Aluko, as Maokwe hinted at the other time, perhaps a good place to start would be to even look at that microsite for the continuous voter registration process. I see a number of tabs on that website. You may want to talk people through. You've talked about the fact that we don't need to re-register if we lost or damaged, if we have a lost or damaged PVC. Exactly what is the process? So I have I've lost my PVC, or my PVC is damaged, Beavers doesn't read it any longer, or the smart card reader doesn't read it any longer. What do I need to do?
if you lost, can I?
Go ahead, please.
If you lost your card, what we are saying is
you can speak to the website as it is right on the screen.
You have to get to our registration. You have to get to our registration point. Now we are now saying registration points are in the wards, our local government offices, and our state offices. You have to meet our officials. You see, that's the important thing, because it can never be done by proxy. You must physically go there and lodge your complaints and tell them that you lost your card. And once you say that, immediately they know what to do. You'll be given a form to fill, a form that is dedicated for that purpose, designed for that purpose. You'll be given a form to fill, and of course, if you lost your card, you must bring some proof of identification. If you are transferring your vote, you bring the other card. You bring the other card to us to show to us. I was registered in Lagos. I've moved to Abuja. This is my card. When we get your card, of course, without telling us, by the time we look at it, we put it in our system, all your details, we get all your details. And what I'm saying is, you know, it's a very easy process, because you must apply. And the application process is that you get to our offices, you meet our officials, form will be given to you, and your details will be taken. And then all other processes are internal. Your own responsibility as an individual is to come to our office.
But Mr.
Aluko,
the challenge
tell
here,
us what you want to do.
Just 1 second, Mr. Aluko. I think the challenge here is, which is why, you know, Malkwa is asking about the electronic angle to it. Many people are very busy. Many people may not have the time to go to the INEC office every time, for which reason you have this website dedicated for continual voter registration. And I see that on that page, I'm on it right now checking it out, where people can report lost or damaged PVC replacement requests on your website. Is that also relevant? If anyone has lost, who is watching us now and has not been able to get it reported or whatever, is this link on the screen now still relevant?
It's relevant because the online pre-registration process also takes care of issues of transfers and issue of reporting lost or damaged voters' cards. But what we are saying is, whatever you want to do, if you come online, you indicate. You definitely indicate, but you cannot finish everything online. You still need to get to our office to be able to finalize it, to be able to complete it. That's what I'm saying. Nigerians are busy, we understand. You know, sometimes it's not easy for some people to take time off to be able to get to our office. But at the same time, we also know that if you lost your driver's license, you have to look for time to get to the road safety office. If your car's papers are expired, you also look for time to be able to get to the VIO's office. So we need to start taking responsibility. We need to take more, show more interest in the process. It's important for eligible Nigerians to vote. If you are not registered, it is important for you to register to vote, because voting is an integral part of our democracy. If you lost your card, it's your responsibility to let us know in INEC and make sure you get another card. If you have transferred to another place, it's your responsibility to let us know so that we'll put you in the new location where you just moved to. What we are saying now is that there's a responsibility to these things, and we are asking Nigerians to take responsibility. After all, as I said, if your card papers are expired, you will not sit at home. And I'm saying now that it's also good for people in various local governments to also do their best to know where our INEC offices are located. Because as I am now, I live in Abuja Municipal. I know where the VIO office is. I know where road safety office is. If my car's papers are expired every year, I know where to go. If my driver's license is expired, I know where to go. So it's good for people to also try and know where the INEC office is, so that even though we have said people can pre-register online, people can also indicate online that they have lost their cards or they want to transfer. You will still have to physically complete these things. You know, you have to physically complete these things. And I'm saying people should show more interest. There's no right without a responsibility attached to it. The right to register, the right to vote has certain responsibilities attached to it. So for many young people who of course, we're able to take advantage of the online portal. Our offices are there. They should look for time, please. Visit our offices and complete the registrations so that you'll be able to get cards and be able to vote.
Well, clearly the questions are beginning to pour in, but we'll take a short break. When we return, Kade will take us through those ones, so please take us.
Well, we're just about 347 days to the next cycle of employment exercise, as we now call it, for public servants. So it's important to have these conversations about, voter education, what to do, what not to do. And we're taking this all-important conversation on with Mr. Victor Aluko, who's the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at INEC. He's in our Abuja studio, as well as Mr. Austin Aigbe, Senior Program Officer, Center for Democracy and Development, also in our Abuja studio. Just before we take on those questions, I wanted to quickly bounce this off Mr. Aigbe. We'll come to Mr. Aluko in a moment. But just quickly, by the way, we have a host of questions. But Mr. Aigbe, this introduction of technology, I know at the start there are a lot of people that thought, how do we go about this again? I don't have access to internet or to a computer and all of that. And it was quite of a hurdle for a lot of people. But how would you say that this has impacted on the attitude of people? Because, yes, we introduced technology, but it's important to also evaluate how much this might help or hinder the process. But would you say that this has improved overall before we get into those questions?
Introduction of technology to our electoral process is the best thing ever that will ever happen to our system. The fact remains that what the digital device has done is to enable people who are too freaked to their own phones. We now live in a digital age. We live online. In fact, people sleep with their phones. So what INEC has done is to put the process before you, even at your own face, that even if you don't want to go physically to register, once you have the first motivation to go online and click on those relevant links, and you have to put in your data, and you get a printout to say, come within these days, just come in, and you get people like the director talking about you going to facilitate the process and have it registered. There's a likelihood of people now leaving the comfort of their homes to just, because it takes less than 10 minutes or thereabout to complete the physical aspect of it. It may require some time. Sincerely, there are issues. When Omobe was asking, I didn't talk about the issue with the picture capturing and the online process. There are diverse areas. I don't know how to put it now. The kind of camera you have to use, the kind of feature presentation you have to be. There's a part you have to smile. There's a place you have to look normal. And these two pictures must be accepted before it goes. And sometimes people have also complained about the dark background where they take those pictures, where they do the registration at home. So this orientation needed to go more. People need to be more sensitized. I know of people come in to say, we can't register. We'll be trying to just go through to click on the two pictures to accept, then to finalize that pre-registration. It had not happened easily. What are you waiting for? Just go to the INEC office and finalize the process, because it will take maybe 10, 15 minutes. You were done, especially when you go in early. As already said, everything that has value needed you to commit time for. And one of these is a value to decide who govern us for the years.
Mr. Aigbe, just 1 second. Just 1 second. On the issue, just a second. My apologies for buttoning. On the issue that you just raised now, that people need to quickly go to the INEC office, and Mr. Aluko, we want to speak to this as well, but the challenge here is not for people to go, but is where to go in particular. Do they have to go to the voting ward to complete the process, or any INEC office at all? Because if, for instance, I live in Songota in Lagos, and I work on the island, which is several kilometers away from where I live and where I will vote, it's easier for me to go to the next door, not too far from my office, if an INEC office is there. But can I complete the process there and vote at my home, which is kilometers away? Mr. Aigbe, that's for you. Is this something that you think should be considered?
Hello?
Yeah.
No. What we are saying is that... Is he talking?
Go
What we are saying is that if you decide to pre-register online, you cannot finish that registration at the ward level now, in the ward locations where
that
we
is noted, Mr.
You have to finish it at the local government office or at the state office, where we have the
That is
infrastructure
noted, Mr. Aluko. Just a second. The question here is, can I complete the physical registration at a local government that is not where my ward is? Because that's the experience of many people in different parts of Nigeria, where they work at a place very far from where their local government of residence is, and then they may not be able to make out the time to get away from the office to quickly go back home to register, complete the registration, and come back to work. So is this something that they can do, that they can complete the registration process at a local government far from where they live?
I will actually plead with you and all Nigerians that are listening to complete that process in the local government where you live, where you want to vote. It's important to do that, because if you register in another local government, at the end of the day, your registration will be domiciled there, and you might have to transfer to where you are all over again. So that's why the registration guidelines say you register in the local government or ward where you reside or work. That is where you want to vote. So it's better for people to know, so that if you are working in Ikeja, but you want to vote in Lekki, it is better to complete your registration in Lekki. Choose Lekki when you are pre-registering, and complete your registration there, rather than to complete it in Ikeja. And of course, because you will have to be allocated to a polling unit within your ward in the Ikeja local government where you registered. So it's important for people to know. Sometimes the process seems a little bit technical, but the electoral process is quite peculiar. Like you are saying, if your car papers are due, you can send somebody to go and do it for you. But the law does not allow any form of registration by proxy. You cannot collect the card even by proxy. You cannot vote by proxy. Everything is individualized somehow. You as a person must take responsibility and do things for yourself. That's what makes the electoral process peculiar. And sometimes it sounds not too easy, but that's the way it is.
Okay,
if you're going to vote in Abuja Municipal, please complete your registration in Abuja Municipal.
Okay, let's run through the questions. Okay, let's run through the questions now.
That means we are allocating you to Alabaji, and you have to transfer to Abuja Municipal. That means you start another process again.
Okay, I think that point has been gotten, Mr. Aluko, and I imagine that this is, people think that the servers should be linked, so I mean you should be able to access my details perhaps in a faraway place, but I imagine that for the peculiarity of this, you try to domicile servers in each areas and they're not linked. Am I right? Perhaps this is just a yes or no question. Am I right? Are the servers linked, or just, you know, have them domiciled in those areas?
The registration, our registration, the voter register, whether
yes,
it's linked. No, when it comes to cleaning the register, when it comes to cleaning the register, we have systems that pick whether people did double registration, whether you did one in Taraba or you did another one in Sokoto. We have something that picks it. But when it comes to where you want to vote, where you want to register and vote, you are the one who said you are from so local government, and that's where you want to vote. So the law encourages you to register there, because we are going to allocate you to a polling unit within a ward, within a local government.
Okay, so let me take this question from Ayodeji.
There are very technical issues involved that makes it so difficult for us when you get registered in another local government, whereas you intend to vote in another place. We have to start telling you to transfer all over again.
Okay, well, we have quite a number of questions to cover, and I really appreciate that you're doing this with us. So let me take this one from Ayodeji on Twitter, saying that he has registered and done capture in Rivers State since September last year. Says his PVC is not ready yet, and commends the online process, saying it was smooth, but missed his date and simply walked to the center to get a new date and got it done. But the question now is, now he's in Lagos. What should he do?
Wow, he has registered in Rivers.
Yes.
I think it's Rivers.
Yes,
Yes,
Rivers
registration in Rivers are registered in Rivers. As far as we are concerned, he's in the register in Rivers, and now he has moved to Lagos. The issue is he will have to transfer to Lagos.
Is there a limit to the number of times you can transfer within the window, within the continuous voter registration window? Once you have registered, we have not even done the cleaning process that I said, automatic biometric system, biometric identification system. We're going to do all that one after we finish that one, this 1 year continuous voter registration. When we finish at the end of June, then after that, we subject the register to a clean-up process. It's after that we print PVCs and then send to where people register. So it is still okay for him now to transfer again to Lagos? That is, without his PVC, without his... he doesn't have access to PVC yet. You know, he has only entered into a process that we have not finished with him. You know, we have to still subject the process he entered into further activities, like I said, cleaning, releasing the PVC. So, he will have to go and get his PVC when PVC is being given. Then at another date, transfer. For the 4 million people whom you say have successfully completed the registration, I assume that that's because they have received their PVC. No. Okay. I told you that when we finish the entire registration process, we will subject the whole data all over the country to a clean-up process. To know whether people, you know, engage in double registration or triple registration or not. PVCs will be, it's after so that. After that, when we now have the correct figure, clean register for those new registrants, we now print their PVCs. You know, then we tell them to come and pick their PVCs. That is when the entire system is completed. They are now ready to vote. You know, until that is done, the process has not been completed. It's step by step. So he's stuck in Port Harcourt for now, or Rivers for now? Well, if he knew that he'll be returning to Lagos, he should have just waited to do the thing in Lagos. You know, sometimes it's good for people to know these things. He should have just waited to do it in Lagos, rather than having to now wait again to do a transfer. Okay, Kayode, you still have the floor.
Kayode stepped by a little, but to follow up on that question that you asked about the 3 million that have successfully completed the process, what happens to the 4 million that has, the 4 million that has completed?
Successfully completed.
Yeah. What happens to the 3 million that have not completed, or that may not, those who are unable to complete the process? What happens?
Well, as I said earlier, it is the responsibility of those who showed interest in registering to complete the process. And that's why we are pleading with them. And that's why we are enlightening them. We keep talking, we keep shouting that they should do their best to complete the process. Because if you don't complete the process, it's just that you started something you did not complete. It's not complete, and there's no other way to say it. So that's why I'm saying that there's a responsibility to this thing. We have talked to Nigerians about it. All over the states now, all our resident electoral commissioners are going on TV. All our people are talking to community leaders. We're doing all our best to let people know all this. So if you started the online process and you do not complete it, I'm sorry. There's nothing INEC can do about it. The responsibility is not for INEC to complete it for someone. The responsibility is for the registrant to ensure that he is able to complete the process. And our aim is to give the information and to encourage people to take appropriate action. When we give the information and we'll do all we can to encourage people, and people don't take action, sometimes it's painful for us.
Okay, let's run through this question from F. Nami Concept on Twitter as well, saying that when the name of someone who double registered is deleted during the data scrub, do they, I imagine, does INEC inform the person or not, and how? Wouldn't this bring issues and confusion during election, as they will go to polling units and be turned back? Okay, Muria Kimborode, apparently.
No, if someone registered twice, like you registered in Delta before, you were a voter in Delta, you registered, and you get transferred to Abuja, and instead of transferring your vote, you now come and register. You see, what you have done, simply invalid.
No. The question is about invalid. The question is about data scrub.
It's invalid. We will not allocate it to
Mr.
any...
Aluko,
we will not allocate it to any...
pardon me. The question in this case is about data scrub. If someone's name is scrubbed in that process of data scrub, is a person informed that, okay, your name...
his first registration.
Okay, no, so the question is...
valid
I understand.
voter.
So how does a person know where the name has been scrubbed? Has it been scrubbed in the first place he registered or the second place? So that at least the person knows where not to go to and where to go. So is there some form of feedback so they know that, okay, your name is no more in this...
That's part of the information we are giving out.
Okay.
That's part of the information we are giving out. We will not give the person a voter's card. All he has done here in Abuja, after moving from Delta to Abuja, you know, are not telling us that he is transferring and he registered afresh. We simply ignore that new registration he did here in Abuja. We just clean it up from our system. Of course, it's an offense to do that. It's an offense to do that, and we are telling people that this thing is not as simple as it seems. If you engage in double registration, it's against the law. It's an offense. There's a penalty to it. We will just clean it up from our system so that it does not clog our system, so that it does not make our system unnecessarily unwieldy. Many people, all that has happened so far, we have removed them from our system. That is the ones we did in Anambra, the ones we did in FCT, and the one we are doing in Ekiti, and then the one we will do in Osun. Before
okay, very quickly.
We subject the registrars to
very quickly, Mr. Aluko.
And the person, of course,
just 1 second, Mr. Aluko.
From us.
Yeah, just one quick one from Umar Abu, also on Twitter. We asked them to send in their questions. I first registered during the 2011 general election. Then no PVC was active at my home. Home state, or Kenya to be precise. Then I traveled to Ilorin for schooling, and I lost my temporary card. Now I don't even know if I'm to re-register for PVC. What does this fellow do?
Well, if he registered before, what that one means is that he never went back to his local government to collect his PVC. And that's what we are saying. That PVC will still be there as of today. I'm so sure. He never went back to collect his PVC. He said he held on to the temporary slip, and which he also lost the temporary slip. He can still go back to that place, go back to our local government office, Okene, and collect his PVC. Then after collecting that PVC, then he can do many other things in life. He can transfer to a new place, you know. And if, you know, I mean, people need to just know the basic facts about these things. And the more we talk about them, you know, the more we expect people to know. So that once you know, you also be able to tell others that if you did not collect, if you registered in 2011 and you never went back to collect that PVC will be there. I mean, your voter's card, it will be there in our office. And we said all over the country there are many voters' cards that people did not collect. It's because people did not come back to come and collect these cards.
Well, some of them said they came back. I mean, I'm reading, I mean, we're receiving a deluge of tweets this morning from people who are really interested in the process, and I think that INEC might need to invest quite a bit in terms of, you know, educating the people on how to go about this. But I would like to read a few or one or two feedback, and this will be for Austin to respond to. This is from Olagunju Oladile, who says it cannot be denied that there are targeted improvements in the registration process, but the internal cuisine itself has not changed. Limiting the registration units to LGA makes the bottleneck a deliberate process that looks like systemic voter suppression. That's from Olagunju. And then this gentleman who we responded to, who registered in Port Harcourt and has gone to Lagos, says, so life is uncertain. The gentleman said I should have waited to do it in Lagos. Work brought me to Lagos. I didn't plan it. The whole process seems too robotic and inflexible. People move for different reasons all the time. We're supposed to innovate to solve these problems. This is the experience of, you know, some Nigerians, and young people these days are mobile. I know that INEC has tried to innovate to, you know, include this group of people. But looking at the nature of work these days, what more? Because we know that INEC is by the laws are also inhibited and can only move so much within these laws. What other innovation do you think we can bring to bear in such a way that this doesn't look so inflexible and so, you know, cumbersome for people to undergo?
I think people must acknowledge the fact that we've moved over a period of time in an electoral landscape. Once upon a time, there was no smart card reader. Once upon a time, there was no beavers. Once upon a time, there was no pre-registration online. There's a trajectory. I know that folks who are talking now will want, what they want, they've not said it, is online voting. And as at this material time, there is no provision. But there is online, I'm talking about online voting, the possibility of being able to register in Port Harcourt and voting in Lagos. So you want to have a card. It's almost like for us as election observers, majority of us don't vote.
Yes.
Journalists
too.
Journalists don't vote. Majority don't vote, including INEC officials who are 18 and above don't vote. They got right to vote. But when you are posted out of your polling unit, you can't use those votes. The reason is because we are not there yet. Maybe in the future, we will sit back and be talking about electronic voting, where folks abroad, sitting in the comfort of their home in New York or in London, can click on using some anyhow, but we are not there. So INEC, by the provision of law, again, INEC cannot override the law. The law requires that there's a voter register at the polling unit where your name is domiciled. You cannot, even within a polling station, if your name is in polling unit 1, you cannot even vote in polling unit 2. It's there. This is what matters for folks who, somebody asked about how would you know when his name is not. There are claims and objections. At some point, INEC will paste, I'm sure you would say that. There will be claims and objections where in each of the polling units, names will be pasted. You go in and check that your name is there. If it's not correctly written, you go back and correct. Those claims and objections will have some time. If your name is not there, you will go and say, my name is not there, and probably you'll be told that you've been engaged in multiple registration. And again, it's actually an offense. Just get the right information. And information is at our disposal. It is not a deliberate, the first question, it's not deliberate that you go online, sincerely. My colleagues, young folks in our office, who will otherwise never may go to the physical location to get registered, simply just pull up the system and I encourage them, come on, oh yeah, open it, get it on. Oh yeah, they did it, did all of the smiling and all. Father was always talking about the challenge we had, and eventually they got it right, and they got a date, went to Amak local government area. Within an hour, they were back to the office. Within an hour. In fact, very, very interestingly, the boat, I don't know whether it's boat or the other one, that had a reduced fare for anybody going to get CVRO done. And that was super unique. Can we then make that across the Federation? That INEC can work with most of these service providers, that when people register online, once they get online, let it be like a dedicated line for online registrant. So that, because people who go online systemically are those who are busy. It's almost clear. They could do that at the comfort of the table, anywhere in the office and all of that, but you need to create that time. 10 minutes, I know those guys, when they came back, and I asked them, how did the system go? They said the moment they came, when it was their time, about 11:15, that was the time that was given. When they went in, before you know what was happening, they did all, and they captured. That's why it's important, is because of the finger capturing. Because you don't have that online. You won't capture fingers at the pre-registration stage. So they got the finger captured, and before you know what's happening, within 10 minutes, they were out. That is what people need to know. People still believe that when you do the online registration, you are going to spend that Ukrainian time of 1 hour, 2 hours, that we did. I did in 2011. I knew what we faced getting registered at that time. You needed to spend like a whole day. But the timing has been reduced with all of this technology.
So you've given an interesting angle, and I hope that employers also take this into cognizance. So for people who, live in one local government and work in another local government, urban cities where traffic is a major issue. Just as a lot of employers were big on COVID-19 vaccine, it would also be very helpful if they are also big on, voter registration and encouraging and helping their staff get registered. And it's very interesting to note that there are reduced fares for those who are taking the online sharing, ride-sharing apps. It's very interesting to note that there's reduced fare for them who are going to go and get their continuous voter registration done. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for the information you've shared this morning. I hope that, you know, we've encouraged more people to at least get interested in the process and see how they can get their voter registration cards. Mr. Victor Aluko is the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at INEC, and Mr. Austin Aigbe is the Senior Program Officer, Center for Democracy and Development. Thank you so much for your enlightenment this morning. We'll take a break at this point, and I just mentioned COVID-19 vaccine. Where are we with regards to our fight against COVID? I mean, there have been all manner of jokes, but it will not be a joking matter when we come back. Please stay with us. Well, yes, it's been 2 years since COVID broke out, and we're wondering where are we in that mix right now. I was telling you about a joke that people have been making, and just behind the scenes, I've been told that it's not exactly a joke about how reporting on COVID-19, it would seem, has taken the back seat in the wake of the Ukraine or Russia-Ukraine war, or the invasion of Ukraine, however it is you choose to couch it. As there have been questions as to what exactly is happening with COVID. We know that a few countries have relaxed their rules. Where is Nigeria with its vaccine mandate? Have a lot of people taken on the vaccines, or has that also been relaxed? We have with us this morning Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed, who is the head of Technical Secretariat and member of the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning, Malte.
We also have joining us via Zoom Professor Oyewale Tomori, who is a professor of virology and past president, Nigeria Academy of Science. Prof, you're welcome to the program, and good morning to you.
Morning, Mape. It's a pleasure seeing you again.
So perhaps I'll start with you, Prof. I do not know what your reading of the situation is with our fight against COVID-19. I know that the federal government did start a campaign only recently. We've been saying that they have been on the campaign for a while, but I think now there is a more vigorous one on television. I do not know if it's still running now. I know I've seen a few times if it's still off or if it's off now, encouraging people to go and get vaccinated. It's unclear how many people have taken on the vaccine, but how would you rate our fight against COVID-19? Is the fight still on in your estimation, or would you say that we've turned our attentions to all that types of fights currently bedeviling us?
Thank you very much. I think, unfortunately, as always, we always follow what others are doing. The world is relaxing all over the world about COVID and all that. But WHO keeps warning us that the problem is not over. A lot of the European countries, for economic reasons, are scaling back on all the plans they have, which I think is wrong. And I think we in Africa should not follow that. COVID is still around. The figures that came out of recent, over 2 million people, according to WHO yesterday, cities in China are under lockdown because they are like over 5,000-10,000 cases occurring in one day. So it's still around. The fact that we're not getting figures in Nigeria is because we have also abandoned the whole thing. Mukhtar knows that I've already sent him a note about that issue when I said the steering committee was now becoming a steering committee, just staring at what is going on and letting the people decide. We need to continue, to let the people know that the problem is not over until it is over in the last country. I think one good example for us is to see what has happened with polio. Afghanistan and Pakistan had polio. Recently, Malawi got a case of wild polio, even though Africa has been declared free. So it's not over until every country is no more COVID in every other country.
But Prof, we've also heard, and this is something that's also coming from scientists who are saying that we might need to live with this. I mean, that it's going to be like almost every other disease, which we'll need to live with. It's not going to be something that we can eradicate, like polio or maybe smallpox. It might be something that will be like the flu, which you get, you treat, and then you go back to work. You don't agree with them?
No, I do. I mean, eventually that's what it's going to turn out to be. We're going to find waves of whatever, endemic diseases coming up at time. When the population with the immunity goes down, then you have an upsurge in cases, which has happened with many of the diseases, especially with respiratory diseases like flu. So it becomes an annual thing, and variants will still keep coming out. You have a large number of people whose immunity will wane, and the population that is susceptible and vulnerable will increase with time, and therefore you get an upsurge. And that's what happens with endemic diseases. Yeah, so this is probably going to turn to be that we continue to need a vaccine. We continue to monitor what is happening. And our record that disease surveillance must continue. Okay, that's the only way we can know whether we have upsurges or we don't have.
Okay, let me come to you, Dr. Mukhtar. I do not know, Prof said he already communicated with you that, your committee is now a looking committee. Is that the situation?
No, we joked about it with Prof, I really admire his sense of humor. He always makes you laugh, but in reality, the situation is that we're continuing to monitor the situation. A lot of things are happening in the background. We do not want to send conflicting signals without really knowing what the situation is and what the guidelines will be. As Prof mentioned, so many countries have relaxed their situation, mostly for political and economic reasons. And we don't want to follow suit. Many people that call, urge us to also relax our rules, remove restrictions, and so on and so forth, because they see when they travel outside, most of these countries have relaxed their rules. But what we're doing is we are following it cautiously. We're trying to monitor the situation, assess the risk of importation into our country, and be able to adjust our restrictions. We've always tried to allow pragmatism and science to lead us, not just what other countries are doing. That is something.
Restrictions, Dr. Mukhtar. I mean, as far as majority of, my producer just puts up those visuals. Life has gone back to normal for many Nigerians. They're going back to their places of worship. They're going back to their mosques, their churches, marketplaces. No one is wearing a mask anymore. And it would seem that the only places where you need a mask to enter are banks, government offices, and maybe some government functions where it is required that you must wear a mask. And even then, sometimes people just wear it as a gate pass. They wear it, and then when they're inside, the mask is down. So what regulations are we really talking about here?
So the regulations I was referring to are mostly the travel regulations, which require you to follow certain protocol, do your COVID test before you come. When you arrive, you do another COVID test. Some countries have waived that they don't require COVID test before you get into their country. And the reason is not far-fetched, because they have reached a certain critical level of vaccination. Therefore, a few trickles of people who are positive who come into these countries, will not largely increase their risk and vulnerability of their population. It's the concept of herd immunity. But even that now, we can see that with the current things that are happening, Russia, Ukraine, conflict, and a lot of influx of people from Ukraine into Western Europe now, we see that the numbers are beginning to rise. Over the last 1 week, we've seen cases rising in those, because if you have a large number of people going in at a time, they can affect the situation in your country. But if it is small trickles, and you have achieved this critical level of vaccination, it will not. The same thing applies to us. We have always monitored the trend in Nigeria to even predict when the next wave, is going to be. And that usually coincides with the period of high volume of travel, particularly from Europe into Nigeria. For example, now we are trying to monitor from now to the Easter period. We know that is when we have a lot of people. And if something, currently we have the evacuation of Ukraine, mostly students into this country. And we've seen how that large number also, that came, how it has changed even the reporting, within NCDC. Out of the over 1,500 that came in, we have almost 13.5% of them testing positive. And this is because Ukraine itself has been a country where largely the COVID protocols are not really fully enforced. Their vaccination level is actually low. Even in Russia itself, the vaccination level is not as high as in Western Europe. So these are the risks, and these are the determinants of the global spread.
But compared with where they're coming to, Nigeria, some people might argue that perhaps their vaccination, are we at par with their vaccination levels, or are we even lower?
Our vaccination level actually has been low. Right at this moment, we're talking about maybe 7-8 million people who have been fully vaccinated. The total doses administered also, is nothing comparable, to where we should be as a target in the country. But it is growing up. It is improving. But not really at the level that we would want it to be. We had wanted that by the end of first quarter of this year, we would have reached at least 50% of our target, but we're quite far from that. So, but it's not only vaccination. It is now the measures you mentioned that are in place. For some time in Nigeria, yes, the numbers have not been coming because, as Prof mentioned, our testing has not been really too elaborate. We've been over 70% of the testing we are doing is mostly among the travelers, people who are traveling, and therefore that is not telling us exactly, what is going on in the wider spectrum within the country. So we need to improve on the testing. We need to test people in the hospitals. That is the way we know that we're really dealing, with the actual figures, that we should be dealing with in the country. But again, all hope is not lost because we have not seen any rise, significant rise in the number of hospital admissions. So that is comforting us to tell us that even if people are getting infected, they're just getting the mild form of the disease. It does not lead to hospitalization, and also it does not lead to any increase, significant increase in the number of deaths.
Okay, let me bring in my colleague, Kayode, here.
Well, thank you, Markwe. Dr. Mohammed, so this is for you, still talking about traveling. This has been a major concern for a while for a lot of travelers in Nigeria. In fact, let me just accentuate this. Okay, can you hear me, Dr. Mohammed?
Sorry, Markwe, I can't hear him.
Okay, we'll try to work on that, Dr. Mohammed. I just wanted to put this question through to you about, testing for vaccinated people who come into the country. But we'll work on your audio. But let me just bounce this off, Professor Tomori. It's been a major concern for a lot of people who travel into the country, and this is for Prof, by the way. So they compare this to having to travel to the UK, for example, especially fully vaccinated people who don't have to, go through some processes like the, pre-boarding test, 48 hours, the day 2 test. That's for fully vaccinated people. And I wonder why that's still the case in Nigeria. And I wonder for you as well, is that a big question mark for you?
Yeah, thank you very much, my friend. You see, I think we need to look at the whole spectrum. If somebody is fully vaccinated and is certified as fully vaccinated, I agree with what is going on in other parts of the world. There's no need for testing and all that on. And I think we can adapt, to that kind of situation. My worry, for example, what is happening, just like Mukhtar said, with the influx, with what is happening, relaxation in Europe and other things, possible new variants coming up, many more people will get infected even after the vaccination. And therefore, we need to continue on our own side to protect ourselves, because we don't have the kind of vaccination we want. And many more people coming in a country that has relaxed its process. Just like, again, we've been told, the cases are rising over there. And I'm sure some of these are among some of the people who have been vaccinated. So I think on that point, we should still keep some of our regulations, to protect ourselves. If they're going over there and the country says you don't need to test, then I think we should stop that. I mean, the country says you can come to my country without your testing, you are fully vaccinated, then we shouldn't insist on testing people who are living. But for us, in our own country, because of our own level of vaccination, the fact that, the cases are now coming up in other places, I think we should still insist on testing whoever is coming into this country.
I'll take this back to Dr. Mohammed, Prof. I hope you can hear me now. And I'd like to know the science, the thinking behind that, still keeping that measure in place. And I've talked about traveling to the UK, for example. You don't need a PCR test, and you don't need the processes that follow. It's been totally lifted, because the thinking is once you're fully vaccinated, you should be fully, at least to a large extent, over 90% protected from the virus. So why are we still keeping that here in Nigeria? You have to do 48 hours pre-boarding test and do day 2 tests for fully vaccinated people. And this mail from one of our viewers, Thompson Kumeni, actually speaks to that, saying that it actually costs 90,000 naira just to get the testing, when in other countries you don't have to go through all of that. So for him, this is confusing, and he's demanding an explanation for this. And I imagine for a lot of travelers, they also want to know what is the science behind it.
Okay, so let me take the issue separately. I think following on the science, if you look at why do you need to test before you come into the country, Prof has mentioned that we are largely unmitigated community. Largely our people have not been vaccinated, and therefore any shift in the, if you have large volume of cases coming into the country, it's really going to disrupt our epidemic. It is going to raise more cases, more hospitalizations, and probably more critical care. So we have not reached the stage where we will say that everyone coming into the country, although we are considering it, but again, we need to monitor the situation and see what is going on in Europe now. We've had discussions, in fact, for the last 3-4 weeks, about relaxing these aspects of, the protocol. But we are, as I said earlier, we are treating with some caution, so that we don't start reversing ourselves when things and conditions change. So that is number one for people coming into the country. For people going out of the country, our rationale for having them to either show a vaccination card or to test. You remember that early December, at the beginning of the Omicron variant proliferation over the world, many countries were very quick to list Nigeria or delist Nigeria and say that we are a red country, that we've been importing cases of Omicron. You remember the famous cases in the UK, in Canada, in the UAE, where they were quick to ban Nigerians from visiting those countries, even though we know, what results are issued from here. But because we could not largely control some of the fake results or whatever, they just get 1 or 2 cases and then boom, they list your country. So it was for that reason, because we not only want to protect Nigerians, we also want to protect Nigeria's image, that we insist that if you are not fully vaccinated, you have to do a PCR test, and that PCR test has to be verified by NCDC, so that we are sure that you are not exporting COVID-19 to other countries, because other countries have not treated us the way we have treated them. For example, we do not deny any passenger from other countries. We have not really listed any country to say that people from these countries are not allowed into Nigeria since the Omicron period.
So that point, pardon
but
me.
other countries have done that, and we
I understand the point.
what we should do is
Right,
to really
pardon me.
open up.
I
Yes.
understand that point. I mean, the thinking behind that. But this is for fully vaccinated travelers coming into Nigeria. I'm talking fully vaccinated, not unvaccinated or partially vaccinated. Fully vaccinated Nigerians or travelers coming into Nigeria. Why do they still have to take a test and still do day 2 test when they come into Nigeria? I mean, costs 90,000 or even more. What's the thinking? That's been largely, you know, taken out of the way in other countries.
So even if you are, so here's the science. Even if you are, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, please
but
go ahead.
Even if you are fully vaccinated, it does not mean that you are protected from getting the virus, that you cannot get infected. The only thing is that if you are fully vaccinated, you can get infected, but the virus will not have any untoward effect on you. You are not likely to get sick, you are not likely to get hospitalized, and you are not likely, you know, to die from the disease. But even if you are vaccinated, you can still transmit the disease, although not in the same capacity and volume as people who are unvaccinated. So Nigeria being a largely unvaccinated community, you have someone who is vaccinated who will not get sick, and he comes into the country, he is welcomed into the family that is not vaccinated. The tendency is that the people in that family are likely to get infected from him, and they will fall sick, not him, but they will fall sick. So if you have people with comorbidities or people who are more vulnerable, you know, they can be hospitalized and they can die from it. So that is why, even if you are vaccinated, you know, that is largely what led to our thinking that you have to take the test. But, you know, as the vaccination coverage continues to improve in our country and also in other countries, so we have to look at it both ways. If Europe today is largely vaccinated, it means that the transmission within that community, you know, will be low. And therefore, the tendency for them to be positive when they arrive in Nigeria will also be low. And that has really impacted, you know, what we are seeing now. Because largely most of those countries were vaccinated just before the Ukrainian crisis. The numbers came down very well. Even the travel between UK and Nigeria, you find many people testing negative, largely, you know, on their day 2 test. So, okay, that's why we will not, we have to be cautious, we have to protect our people. We're aware of the size, we're also aware of the constraint, we're aware of, you know, people wanting to travel very freely, and like I told you, we are really considering this removal of some of these restrictions. For example, the pre-boarding test, we can now replace it with testing on arrival. It will make it easier. We have done the assessments of the airports, you know, to try to put that in place. So it's something that we are really you know, concerned about. And the cost, yes, we're also trying to bring down the cost to replace the current PCR testing with what is called a rapid PCR testing, or even the rapid antigen testing for testing on arrival, so that we can ease, you know, the burden. There are so many ways that you can mitigate the risk. In the past, we did not know much about the disease, and that is why we had this caution. Even though, you know, Nigeria's restrictions have not been it's not really one of the strongest. We've always relaxed and we've always tried to open up, you know, the travel and economies. But it's something that we are working on, and very soon, Nigerians will hear of the changes in our protocol.
Doctor, that you are at least aware of all of these issues, because, and you mentioned the costs, the costs of the vaccination and all of that, because that's one of the issues that a number of people have had about it. It's not just the payment, it's the commercialization of the process. And I'm sure, as you said, you are aware of that as well. What has been done or is being done to curtail that? And is there a punitive measure for those medical facilities that commercialize the process to the detriment of the intention for which the process was set up?
Yeah, so again, at the beginning, really what informed our choice of having two tiers, to have the public sector testing and to also have the private sector testing, is because we didn't want to have a mix. If you recall, very early on, the government expended a lot of resources to build the public health laboratories, to institute PCR testing, such that we virtually have these laboratories in almost all the states in the country. However, for private testing, we preferred to go with private because it is something that needs to be paid. Government cannot sustain, the huge resources that are required to procure these testing machines and the consumables and the rest. And therefore, if we do that, we know that, it's government that is going to bear the burden because it's going to be free. So we did a two-tier approach. Those who need the test, these are people in the communities who are exposed to people who have been positive or people who are at high risk of testing. This one's government will do it for free for them. And currently it is still going on. The only thing is that our health facilities or these laboratories in public institutions have not been testing as much as they should. The second tier was the private sector initiative for testing. And this is strictly for travelers. For travelers and then people who do not want to attend government hospitals to get tested. So if you are traveling, government cannot provide the test kits for you, the consumables and all of that, because it's really expensive. At the beginning, how much were we spending to set up laboratories? It was a huge amount of money. And therefore, that's why we have these two tiers. The private sector to test people who want a test, and the public sector to test for free people who need that test. And with time now, with improvement in technology, we have seen that even the cost of test now can come down if you're doing, for example, a rapid antigen testing compared to a PCR test. So it was all considered. And if you compare also our test, the cost of testing in Nigeria with the cost of testing in many other countries, you realize that really the Nigerian test is not expensive. People who have gone to UK will tell you how much they have spent to get a PCR done. And
I guess the point for a lot of Nigerians is that they've stopped paying those tests. They've stopped paying for those tests in the UK. They don't even need to quarantine anymore. So, of course, when it's happening in places where, as you rightly said, vaccination level is high and they are vaccinated, they wonder what is happening back home where, people are it's not like I see people are dying in their numbers as a result of COVID. They're wondering why it is that they now have to test when they now come back home and they're already double vaxxed anyway. So I think that, perhaps a review will continue in the Presidential Steering Committee and maybe a decision will finally be reached as to, what the next step ought to be, or perhaps another briefing of Nigerians as to why this is important and necessary. But in the meantime, we have to thank you for coming on this morning. We have been speaking with two gentlemen. Professor Oyewale Tomori is a professor of virology. He's been speaking with us via Zoom. Yeah, and a past president, Nigerian Academy of Sciences, has been speaking to us via Zoom from Ibadan. Prof, thank you so much for your time this morning.
My pleasure.
And we also had here in our studios Dr. Mukhtar Mohammed, who is the head of Technical Secretariat and member Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19. The committee's mandate is still on?
It is still on.
When will it be over?
As long as there is need for the committee to continue, certainly the committee's work will continue. But we are also, trying to get to the end of this, hoping that there is not going to be another wave in March, April.
Well, it's our hope as well. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. We have a few feedback from you, some of them positive, some not so positive. This very first one from Festus Akiboyewa says, mandatory COVID test in Nigeria is money-making. It's a waste of time and money for travelers, period. That's the tweet right there. Festus, your opinion is welcome.
Well,
we have a few more. I think I'll leave my colleagues to do it.
Yeah, Polycarp has this one on the INEC and voter registration process. I'm so disappointed that in spite of the huge amount of resources they receive, INEC still has not got a system that can make it possible for people to start and complete the process of registration or transfer online without physically coming to their overcrowded offices. Since they insist that everybody should come to their offices, is it not high time that they opened offices in the wards? Well, you may have to test the process in order to be able to know what this whole thing is about.
Well, the question is, or will be, what's happening with the offices in the local government area? And Amy Scott has this tweet that perhaps speaks to an experience, saying that I did my voters registration in Lagos. In fact, I was an INEC ad hoc staff that time. I'm in Abuja now. I went to Lagos just to collect my card, but getting to INEC office in the LGA, I could not get my card. In fact, the way I was attended to was poor, or was too poor, I imagine. There you go.
Well, Bakare Biola Muiz also has this. Just to quickly answer Polycarp's question, is it not high time they open offices in the wards? The offices have already been opened in the wards. It's to find out whether they have opened in your wards. If they haven't, you can take the complaint to the local government areas or escalate it. We'll be able to help you escalate it to INEC offices. But they have listened to that and they've taken it to the wards. Bakare says, I just completed my application for voter transfer during the course of the discussion. I was prompted to revalidate and take 2 pictures before I could complete my application. I just got a mail that my application has been submitted. It is quite impressive. So congratulations to you, Bakare Biola Muiz. I think that, you know, if you really put your mind to it, you might be able to make some progress. So even if it's just one person we're able to talk to today and who makes an effort as a result of the program we've done today, I think that the program will be rated a huge success by my ratings. Well, thank you so much for watching this morning. I'm Maokwe Ogu-Yusuf.
Absolutely, Maokwe. And I do hope that INEC will dispatch the social media team to our Twitter handle, because there's a lot of questions begging for answers. We can only take just about 3 or 4. So please, that will be welcome. In the meantime, I'm Kayode Okikilu.
You are the employer, so get ready to employ the people who will serve you. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful rest of your day.